basis, what is the state of water shortages throughout the world as of 2019?
If you were to ask me, in the various threats humanity faces, what are the most urgent? I think the most urgent is that we are being made to grow on hate, and we can kill each other before chronic diseases kill us. Just the hate phenomena. Look at the number of conflicts that have been created along lines where there was no problem in the past. Land and water, land degradation and water crisis are the second most urgent. They already are very urgent in large parts of the world, and a major reason for the massive migration from rural areas to urban areas is that industrial agriculture, chemically intensive, water intensive, energy intensive, capital intensive, has so dispossessed the farmers and so destroyed the soils, people can't make a living in farming anymore. And when most of the world is farming, in the US you might think most of the world isn't farming because you've reduced your farming population to a number that's smaller than the number of people in the jails here, but most of the world farms for a living. And when that's taken away from them, they're refugees. And when too many livelihoods are taken away from a society, you get a crime economy. I was at a tribunal, public tribunal in Mexico, which started to get destroyed with NAFTA and then the WTO. And at this tribunal, which was actually on corn, on the GMO corn, which they haven't yet allowed to enter, there was an economist who was presenting the data and said with the destruction of peasant livelihoods and small-scale entrepreneurship, 1/3 of Mexico's economy was now a crime economy. If you read the statements of those who took the long caravan from Honduras through Mexico, each of them is talking about the end of farming and the rise of crime as making life impossible where they are. So we have to make peace with the earth, and we have to make peace within our societies, and there's only one way: ecological farming systems. Farming, in my view, when I was young and I chose to be a physicist, understanding the world was the most urgent task for me. Today, good farming is the most urgent task.
What is the ideal system for farming?
Because the planet is so diverse, we can only identify the ideal principles that should be in all good farming systems that produce good food. Some places there'll be more plants, in some places there'll be more animals, in some places there'll be more trees, in some places there'll be more annual crops. Some places will be rice and some places will be corn. So uniformity is an enemy of good farming. Diversity is the signature of good farming, both diversity within the farm and diversity across farming systems. But I increasingly feel that the diversity of the farm includes diversity of cultures now, because it's farming that creates different and unique cultures. This is what has created all the languages. Among the Eskimos, the numbers of words they have for the snowflakes, that they can distinguish each. In the Rajasthan desert in India, they have 100 ways of describing a raindrop because the raindrop is so scarce. That diversity, which makes for culture, which makes for knowledge, which are minds, is particularly in this period of the hype on digital agriculture and the hype on artificial intelligence and robotics. It's extremely important to remember there's so many kinds of intelligences. There's diversity of intelligences. There's diversity of intelligence in the plant, in the animal, in the soil, in our gut, in every cell of our bodies. We can't allow ourselves to forget that, because that's going to be the guide for rescuing ourselves from this destructive system. The second is related to the fact that colonialism was based on violence and the fossil fuel system of the economy, including agriculture, was based on extraction. Here was fossil carbon nature had put underground, and over 600 million years turned into gas and oil. And we learned how to pull out 20 million each year and burn it up. And that's the root of the climate crisis. But this became a model for how to make economies and how to do agriculture. The extractive system, just take. The ideal farming systems has to be based on giving. Giving back to the soil, giving back to the farmer a fair price, giving back to society. And that is how we'll get rid of the agrarian crisis. We'll get rid of the low prices farmers are getting. We'll get rid of the desertification of the soil. And we're going to get rid of the chronic disease epidemic, because it's in giving we receive.
Please explain what it means when you say that Monsanto has bought the biggest climate data corporation and soil data corporation.
Well, Monsanto has bought up the world's biggest climate data corporation and the soil data corporation called Gillam. And this is about 3-4 years ago, because Monsanto is recognizing that climate change is a big issue. They're not taking responsibility for being big contributors to it, but they want to make future profits out of it. So when the climate data is controlled by the same corporations that are pushing chemical farming, and the soil data is controlled by them, and the insurance is controlled by them, they're looking at $3 to $4 trillion of future profits. The big data language that's being increasingly used is nothing but taking the soil climate data, which actually is a public good. The soil data, which should be a public good. In fact, every farmer should know their soil. Right now, Monsanto works with John Deere, and it puts spyware into the tractor. And as the tractor goes over the soil, it picks up this much nitrogen, this much phosphorus, this much potassium, this much water, sends that data to Monsanto. Monsanto then sells it back to the farmer as the new data commodity. That's where the control over climate data, control over soil data is coming in the new big data economy that Monsanto calls digital agriculture, and says it'll be farming without farmers.
Is carbon data trading a good solution?
I don't think any solution based on trade can find a way out of the crisis which comes from our separation from the earth. I think there's only one solution to healing the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle, the earth has enough capacity to reabsorb all the carbon dioxide she emits. We exhale carbon dioxide, the trees use it to give us oxygen. Those systems are miraculous, and they have worked for billions of years. The broken carbon cycle is linked to mining for fossil fuels and burning up fossil fuels, so that what you're putting in the atmosphere is way beyond the planet's capacity to reabsorb. But while you're doing that, you're also destabilizing the planet herself. So not only are you growing soybeans in the Amazon, to do that you must cut the Amazon. The Amazon is the lung of the planet. The capacity to absorb goes down. So emitting more, absorbing less, that's the disaster in which we are. There's only one way we can get out of this. Emit less, absorb more by planting more trees, doing more biodiverse intensive agriculture, putting more carbon through the plants back into the soil. That's the kind of agriculture we practice. And organic content on our farm has gone up 100% in 20 years. The organic matter is built up. This is carbon dioxide pulled out of the atmosphere, making soils fertile. We need to pull carbon out of the atmosphere where it does not belong, excess amounts doesn't belong, and put it into the soil where it does belong. This system of the law of return of the cyclical economy can only be done through ecological farming. Trade cannot short-circuit it. It can fool us because we've got so used to thinking money is the solution. But money cannot be a solution to ecological problems. Ecological solutions are solutions to ecological problems.
What influence do the richer countries have on Africa, India, and poorer countries?
It's extremely sad to watch how governments of the rich country have become sales agents of the chemical industry. And the billionaires who become billionaires because of deregulation, because of globalization, have merged with government aid. And a very, very good example is the Alliance for the Green Revolution in Africa. The Green Revolution has devastated India. It was imposed on us by the Americans, the chemical industry. Africa is now facing this imposition, and Bill Gates is driving it. The Gates Foundation is a very big player in how to do bad agriculture. Other ways in which rich countries' governments influence what happens in Asia, in Africa, is because they turn aid into the creation of markets. This used to happen with World Bank. I remember when I used to do studies on the World Bank, for every $1 of aid the World Bank gives, $3 of business is generated. And we get indebted. And each time we get more deeply indebted, we have to privatize more of our health system, our energy system, our transport systems. Our agriculture is more corporatized. We have more hunger, we have more disease, we have more poverty. And of course, it's so easy to cook up figures that it's very, very easy to say less people are hungry while more people are hungry, to say less people are poor while more people are poor. You alienate people from their land and make them dependent on buying everything. And you say, oh, they're buying more, therefore they're richer. No, they're buying more because they couldn't produce anything for themselves. So the numbers game, whether it's the GDP, the gross domestic product, or it is the measurement of malnutrition, all of these are so manipulated in order to make systems that make the crisis deeper look like solutions. And right now there's a total continuum between the billionaires, their so-called philanthropy, the governments, and the Poison Cartel. It's one big lump of destruction of democracy.
Do you believe it's because the philanthropists are simply brainwashed by the Poison Cartel, or do you think they're in on it?
I think people like Bill Gates are very much in on it because everything he gives to, in fact, my new book, Oneness versus the 1%, is very detailed research on how every place he gives money is a future investment. He gives with one hand in the name of philanthropy, and with the other hand, he's creating a market. And I'll give you a very simple example. So we had the first generation GMO'S, which were the herbicide tolerant and the Bt toxin, and Gates had no role in this. But there's an attempt to create a new generation of GMO'S based on gene editing and gene drives. And Bill Gates is a very big hand in it. So he's created a private company. He's giving money for the research. He's giving money for the patenting. He is also invested in a firm called Editas, which owns the patents on all gene editing. So of course he's pushing this totally unreliable failed technology to make it look like a miracle, because his investments are in that field. I think the PR machine is what is robbing us of our ability to think independently and make decisions for the good of the planet and our own welfare.
What do you see as the importance of the Real Truth About Health conference?
Well, the first thing that attracted me when I got the invitation from the Real Truth About Health conference was the three words in the conference title: real, truth, and health. Because my work, I'm an ecologist. I started to work on seeds because of my passion for biodiversity and the freedom of life on Earth. But today I'm realizing, without having sought answers for health problems, that in good farming are the solutions to good food. That actually a real farmer producing real food is giving us real health. And that any platform for real truth is the place for freedom and democracy in this world of post-truth, where the poison cartel rules our agriculture and our health, because the same people give us cancer and then sell us the patented cancer drug. It's the same poison cartel. Grew out of Hitler's Germany. I think it's extremely important to have platforms where people can hear the truth and follow it up independently, independent of the din of the post-facts, of the post-truth, the fake articles planted where in the Monsanto papers and the case in California, it's all out now. How many scientific papers, how much media reportage has been ghostwritten by Monsanto. Places like the Real Truth About Health conference are places to speak honestly and hear the truth.